there be any conflict of interest if a person combines the roles of a chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
Will Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities. Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. I am Tunde Odeyemi, and today we want to look at practical governance tips to help Nigerian companies avoid corporate failures. And I have with me here in the studio a guest to lead in the conversation. He's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, Mr. LATEEF AKANBI. Mr. AKANBI is the managing partner of LATEEF AKANBI & Co. Chartered Accountants and Business Consultants. Mr. AKANBI trained and qualified with the firm of SIAO, formerly Robert Odiashi & Co. Prior to SIAO, Mr. AKANBI acquired business recovery and insolvency practice experience at Adeshupo, Adetono & Co. and was receiver manager's representative at Cavites Industries Limited at Papa, Lagos. Mr. AKANBI is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and is a fellow of the Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. He was best overall candidate in the ICANN professional exam of November 2020 diet. He won the Association of Professional Bodies of Nigeria and Dr. Erastus B.O. Akingbola prizes for the best graduating student at the ICSAN November 2009 final professional examinations. He also won the Oba Olashore and Ben Nwoji prizes for the best student in corporate financial management in the said ICSA examination. Mr. AKANBI is the author of Corporate Financial Management Test of ICSAN, a member of Finance and General Purpose Committee and Syllabus Review Committee of ICSAN. Mr. LATEEF AKANBI, you are welcome to Corporate Governance Platform.
Thank you, Dr. Odeyemi.
And thank you for finding time to join us on this program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we are discussing practical governance tips to help Nigerian companies to avoid corporate failures. As it is usual with us, we would like to kickstart by asking you, what does the term corporate governance connote?
When we say corporate governance, it refers to the whole system by which a company is controlled and governed. So we're talking about the set of rules, procedures, policies, regulations, institutions by which a company is administered, controlled, and governed. That's a brief concept of
Okay, that's a very good one. What then do you mean when we say corporate failure has occurred?
When corporate failure occurs in an organization, it involves the insolvency or bankruptcy of such a business enterprise. That means the company cannot continue as a going concern. It has issues meeting its obligations. So then we say corporate insolvency or bankruptcy has occurred and corporate failure has occurred.
Does that mean the organization or the corporate body is dead?
We need to differentiate here between when we say corporate failure, it means the company ceases to exist.
Okay.
And when it ceases to exist, it may not be able to continue in its own name.
Okay.
Now, we can have another company who is financially strong that will now take over such an insolvent or bankrupt company. But it will cease to exist in its own name.
In his own name, okay, that is understandable. Now, can you give us some few examples of corporate failures in developed countries like US or UK that are recognized internationally as corporate scandals?
If we take the US in recent time, in 2001, we have the Enron collapse. Then from the Enron collapse, we have the collapse of the accounting firm at Anderson in 2002. Due to it was the obstruction of justice because they were shredding working papers relating to the Enron audit. And then we also have the WorldCom collapse in 2002, and then we have Parmalat in Italy, that was also in 2002. And then in recent time, last year June, we have Wirecard in Germany, where about 1.9 billion euro was missing from the financials. So these are all examples of corporate collapse in the advanced world. And then in Nigeria here, we also have Society Generate Bank and a number of other banks that were no longer in existence now, which can be said to have collapsed.
So we also have some corporate scandals in Nigeria, isn't it?
Yes. There are corporate, a point has to be made about the difference between corporate failure and corporate
scandals. Okay.
Most corporate failure will arise from corporate scandal.
Okay.
But not all corporate scandal leads to corporate failure.
Wonderful.
There could be corporate scandal and the company will not fail. An example in Nigeria is Cadbury in 2006, when they were fined because they were overstatement of revenue to the tune of between 13 billion and 16 billion naira. And the SEC then fined the company, and then the managing director and the finance director also resigned from the company as a result of that scandal. However, that did not lead to the collapse of Cadbury.
The company.
It did not lead to the collapse of the company. So the company is still in existence.
Okay, that's taken. Now, how would you generally assess the state of adherence to corporate governance in Nigeria? We're still talking about Nigeria.
Yeah, in Nigeria, I think the adherence to corporate governance principle is improving among the companies, especially the public companies, because most organizations have now realized that complying with corporate governance principle also is good business, because it will attract investors and it will show that it's an ethical company, and they will even do well by complying by their compliance.
Okay, do you subscribe to this view that adherence to corporate governance can be an antidote to corporate failure?
Yes, I do, to some extent. And I say to some extent because it is not only corporate governance failure that leads to corporate failure.
Okay.
So, in other words, it's not only the issue of corporate governance that will give rise to corporate failure. You have other issues that can give rise to corporate failure in an organization. For example, you have greed on the part of the executive management. You have fraudulent financial reporting. You have overuse of debt, where a company becomes highly geared because it is expanding, and you have complex structure. Then even the executive incentive, can also encourage misbehavior on the part of executive management. And then we also have the issue of the company trying to expand and then leading to complex structure that it becomes unwieldy, unmanageable. So these are issues that, in addition to corporate governance failure, can lead to corporate failure.
Well, while looking at some of the issues that you raised, greed, complex structure, and are they not part and parcel of corporate governance?
Yes, they are. However, where you have a dominant CEO, who can override control, or who will pack board committee with his family members or people he has control over, then that automatically will upset whatever governance structure that is in place.
Okay, will you rate the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 as being consistent with the global best practice?
Yes, it is, because most of the provisions and principles in our NCCG 2018 is consistent with the best standards in the world, like the G20 Corporate Governance Principle, the King's Report, and so on and so forth. So they are it's consistent.
Okay, let me ask you this question before I go on break. What do you think are the best approaches to entrenching corporate governance principles?
A company will need to have proper corporate governance structure in place.
Okay.
You know, they have a board that is active, that is not docile. Then they have board committees that are also active and properly, the membership have the requisite qualification. For example, an audit committee that doesn't have a financial person on that committee is not a proper audit committee. So an audit committee should have members with financial knowledge who understand financial statements, who can analyze it, who know the importance. So if a company has proper structures in place, proper board, proper committees that are functional, that are properly served, then that way it will reduce corporate governance failure and may ultimately reduce corporate failure.
Thank you very much, Mr. LATEEF AKANBI. You have said it all. To avoid corporate governance failure, we need a proper board. We need committees that are active and so on and so forth. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we continue with the conversation on how to avoid corporate failures in Nigeria.
Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if a person combines the roles of a chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities. Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
You are welcome back. It's still Corporate Governance Platform, brought to you by Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators. And I see how Mr. LATEEF AKANBI talking about how Nigerian companies can avoid corporate failures through corporate governance. Yeah, Mr. AKANBI, before we went on break, you actually told us how corporate governance can be entrenched in Nigerian companies. I'd like to take this second half by asking, what is the relationship between effective risk management and prevention of corporate failures?
The risk management is also part of the thing that a proper board will take control of. And the board can do this by either having a standalone risk management committee, or the risk management functions can be delegated to the audit committee. However, they cannot delegate the responsibility. Ultimately, the board of directors is responsible for the risk management function of the company. So if a company has a proper risk management policy and framework in place, which will include things like even up to the IT policy and so on and so forth, then it will reduce the corporate failure, because they will be able to evaluate their position and the risk factors in the company. So, and using the internal control, the internal audit, all these can help a company to reduce the risk of corporate.
Okay, I know the board has a responsibility for risk management, right?
Yeah.
Now, can a company also have a risk management as a department, apart from what the board is going to do? Is it also advisable for organizations to have a risk management department?
Yes, it is. And then the risk management department should even be headed by a very senior person who will have the proper clout to push whatever policy you want to push within the organization, or to engage in discussion with other departments. So it's appropriate for a department to handle risk management and to be headed by a senior manager. Okay.
Talking about avoiding corporate failures, I know we have a whistleblowing. I want us to take this conversation to whistleblowing. What role can whistleblowing play in the context of corporate failure prevention?
Whistleblowing involves the report of unethical behavior to internal or outside parties. So if a member of staff who does not have vested interest and who is not expecting pecuniary compensation sees an unethical conduct in the company, it can report to more senior people or even regulatory authorities, who will now verify whether that report is true, and if it is true, they will take remedial action to correct that conduct and to kind of apply the necessary sanction on the manager responsible. So whistleblowing is an important part of corporate governance structure in an organization, and the whistleblower needs to be protected. His identity needs to be protected. He doesn't have to suffer for the action of whistleblowing. Okay, looking at Nigeria, our corporate bodies, or generally, are we doing enough of whistleblowing in this country? Or if we are not doing enough of it, how can we give us some tips on how corporate organizations, individual organizations can do whistleblowing in this country? Most times in a corporate organization, most employees want to protect their means of livelihood.
That's true.
And that to some extent may mitigate against the extent to which they want to engage in whistleblowing. However, if a company have adequate policy to protect whistleblower, then the employees will be free to report unethical conduct, knowing fully well that they will not suffer for such a report. But if an organization does not have a policy that protects whistleblower, well, they may not be getting much information from that direction.
Oh, fantastic. So whistleblowing, a whistleblower can be protected by having a whistleblowing policy that protects the whistleblower. Fantastic. Okay, let's talk about some of the concepts or principles of corporate governance. Transparency and disclosure are two important concepts in corporate governance. Why do you think they are deemed so important?
The transparency and disclosures are important because they are ways of communicating with the stakeholders.
Okay.
Regular communication, giving sufficient information to the stakeholder. So communication through the company website by virtue of the investors portal. Then they also have full disclosure of all material facts. Emphasis is on material now. Material fact means all facts that can influence the decision of an investor. So there are key concepts in corporate governance: transparency and disclosure.
Disclosure.
Yes.
Okay, when you say material facts that can influence the decision of an investor, does it mean that disclosure or transparency as it is only protects the investors?
No, not only the investors, all stakeholders.
All stakeholders.
Even the shareholders they are already investors in the company. You also have other investors who want to invest in the company. the lenders, the banks, they are also stakeholders. So that will give sufficient information to all stakeholders that have interest in the company. And of course, this does not mean that the company have to give away or have to disclose information that gives its competitive edge.
Okay.
That is why, that will affect its business ultimately, or that can be copied by the competitors, by its competitors. So that's why it's all material facts, such as their financial position, the reports, the composition of the board committees, and all material facts. That
has to be disclosed.
Has to be disclosed.
Okay, because I was actually going into what of the secrets of the company must you also disclose that?
No, you can't disclose what gives you a competitive advantage.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will be out of business.
All right, let us look. What advice do you have for Nigerian companies and organizations on prevention of corporate failure generally?
My advice would be our corporate organization should put proper corporate governance structures in place, and they should try and comply with the rules of corporate governance principle. And then they should also engage in board evaluation, corporate governance audit and the rest. And that is why our institute, ICSAN, is at the forefront of this. At the forefront of corporate governance in this country.
It's like you put that question into my mouth. I wanted to ask, what is the institute doing to assist Nigerian companies to avoid corporate failures?
The institute can help them for board evaluation,
okay,
to see how effective the board is, how effective the board committees are. They can also help when you come to corporate governance report, which should be included in the annual report of the company. So I say ICSAN is at the forefront of this, and this is a big issue for the institute. Okay, the institute can assist Nigerian companies from corporate failures by conducting board evaluation and assisting in what other areas? Governance reports.
Corporate governance reports, and so on and so forth. This is where we are wrapping up on this particular edition of Corporate Governance Platform. Thank you for joining us. I would like to say a special thank you to our guest, Mr. LATEEF AKANBI, FCIS, for finding time to join us on the program. And we want to invite you to join us next week, same station, same time. I remain your anchorman, Tunde Odeyemi. Thank you and bye for now.
Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if a person combines the roles of a chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate